You got Paul Pierce over Larry Bird?
Offensively, yes.
What separates him?
Well, I just felt like Paul was more creative. He was a better scorer than, say, Larry or John Havlicek. I think Havlicek and Larry and Paul were probably the best offensive players that the Celtics ever had. And I think Paul tops that list, in my opinion.
Welcome back inside TD Garden, everybody. Jacob Toby alongside Nick Gelso and Josue Pavone. This episode of the Garden Report brought to you by eHarmony. Go to eHarmony.com. Use the promo code Garden Report for a free month after a purchase of 3. So, guys, Robert Parrish came out and said that Paul Pierce is the greatest scorer in Celtics history, even better than Larry Bird. You cringe over that, sir. Why is that?
Is
that a hot take? Is it?
Well, Chief doesn't give hot takes. I mean, you've heard Tommy Heinsohn say it too. I just
our own Mike
disagree.
Michalia?
I'm not going to throw Trags under the bus, but I have heard he feels that way too.
We'll let Trags speak on that.
I've seen both players. You know, I grew up in the Bird era, got to witness him at least from '86 through retirement in '92, and in my mind, as much as I love Paul Pierce, Larry Bird is the most intelligent, crafty, with his physical abilities or lack thereof, to be able to do.
Both lack
Bird,
physical abilities.
True. Both are actually very good athletes, but they're not as good as their competition.
You're right. No, you're right.
So, yes, Larry Bird, without a question, is a better scorer. And I'm wondering why Josue.
Without a question. Come on.
I don't have a question.
No. I'm saying you're making it sound like it's not even close.
I don't think so.
That's you're gonna throw Paul Pierce under the bus like that.
Come on.
Okay.
I love Paul Pierce.
Second most points all time. You have to respect that.
But Larry
it's
Bird,
closer than I think you're making it seem.
But Larry Bird
you're making it sound like it's not as close.
Larry Bird played 13 seasons, really only 12, because one of those seasons he only played 6 games.
Okay, and how many deep playoff runs did he have?
We're talking regular season points.
Well, we're talking about numbers
well,
here.
That's a
if
good
you want to play a
question.
numbers game,
Josue, that's
if you want to talk about seasons, there's 2 seasons that you can put under Paul Pierce that he played 2 more seasons than Larry Bird.
That's a really good point about deep playoff runs, because there were no droughts during the Larry Bird era. He came to a team that was terrible, worst in the East, and immediately transformed it into a 60-plus win team and number 1 in the East, where Paul Pierce could not do that.
Who was more clutch?
Oh, there's no question, Larry Bird.
Oh, my.
I mean,
come on.
If we're talking about top moments and you know, the guy that you need to hit the last shot out of the 2, I'd go with Larry. Fair enough. But if we're talking about what Paul Pierce did, I mean, all-time leader in second in points, right?
Yep, second in points.
All-time leader in free throws, all-time leader in three-pointers, and he played on a lot of not so great teams. I mean, granted, that does help you in a way, because obviously, you know, if you're the number 1 guy, then that's, you know, a bit construed. But you can't overlook the fact that he took down some giants throughout his career. He took down LeBron twice, took down Kobe once, and almost made it twice in 2010. He was the leader of those squads, and don't give me he had help from KG and Ray Allen.
Let's start with the three-point shot. It was barely in existence. It was there, but I think the Celtics averaged like 6 attempts a game, 7. It wasn't a part of the game at that point. The game hadn't evolved to incorporate that, so that's out the window. Bird won the three-point championship 3 times. He'd walk in the locker room and say, who's going to be second place this year, right? Everybody's heard that story.
That's right.
So 3-point, take that out of there. What was the other one you gave? 3-pointers?
3-pointers, all-time in free throws. And he topped Larry Bird in points.
Free throws, the NBA was, and Jimmy Toscano and I had argument about ticky-tack fouls tonight from the Washington game. The NBA today,
you're gonna short Paul
the
that?
NBA today calls so many more fouls, it's almost disruptive to watch the game with how much it stops with people going to the free throw line.
Pierce earned
Larry
those fouls,
Bird,
man.
Kevin McHale.
Those weren't ticky-tack fouls all the time. You earned those. You got slapped around.
Larry Bird created
Larry
fouls.
Brown got slapped around, too. That's true.
Kevin McHale created fouls by using low post moves, intelligence, and being a step ahead of their opponents.
Yeah, no, something I do think that Bird had over Pierce for sure was the low post game. I do think Pierce, you know, had the fadeaway 15-footer, but
that was a very Bird's patented.
And Bird was a better passer. I'll give you that.
Bird's a better passer. So I think I'm a millennial, so I obviously will go with Paul Pierce just because I wasn't born to watch Larry Bird, right? But I think Pierce does. I don't know about the 3 either. You know.
What do you mean you don't know?
The 3-point shot. Who was better?
it was a different game. I mean, Larry Bird, I would say, was a better three-point shooter than Paul Pierce.
I just think at the end of the day, it's about the championships, right? I mean, if Paul
That's
Pierce
really
had 3 championships,
It is,
this would be a stronger discussion, right? Almost had 2. I think obviously 2 is much different than 1. If he gets that second one, I think this is a conversation that would be happening more often.
Here's what, when I was growing up, I dreamt to be at Larry Bird night. I mean, when he retired, it was like a period of mourning for me. I don't think I left my room, right? And I, had the VHS of Larry Bird night. Tonight we were here for Paul Pierce night, covering this. Pretty amazing. Paul Pierce, I'm not taking anything away from him in this argument, but Larry Bird is a 3-time MVP. He was all defensive player several seasons. People forget. He's a 20-10 guy.
Because Nick, he started
over the
winning
course of a career.
early in his career. Paul Pierce is damn near 30 when he got some help.
But you're missing the point that Larry Bird inherited a team that was in the gutter the year prior.
All right, let me ask you this.
It's going long.
Let's. All right, well, I'll make this quick. Let's do this.
Last point.
Let's flip it for a second, right? Larry Bird walks into a situation like Paul Pierce did. Do you see a much different result in terms of like the winning in Boston?
He did walk into a very similar.
No, what you're saying is this is like if Paul Pierce got KG and Ray Allen in like year 3 or 4 of his career. Then we're talking about probably at least 3 championships, right? We're talking about a similar path of what we saw from Larry Bird.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So that's what I'm saying. I feel like it's all about the championships when you compare the two, and everyone's going to lean towards Larry. And look,
I think it's more than the championships, though. I mean, you're talking 3 consecutive MVPs. I don't know how many 2 finals.
But what I'm saying is he would have been in those conversations if he got help earlier in his career, and if he wasn't almost 30 when he got those guys to help him win a championship.
I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, and I want the viewers to remember this because a lot of millennials watch our show. The truth of the matter is Larry Bird came to a team that was worst in the NBA and took them to first. The year before John Havlicek retired, they were like a terrible. They were worst in the league. He did that with minimal help because Parrish and McHale didn't arrive till the following year. So it's a different league.
But he didn't have to play with Ron Mercer.
No, but he did have to play with Rick Roby.
The rest of those younger
He did
guys.
have to play with Rick Roby. He did have to play with slow white guys. Chris Ford, who hit the first 3-point shot, by the way.
You know what we have to do? We got to make a Twitter poll.
That's a good idea.
And ask the people.
I like that.
Who do you think was the best scorer in Celtics history? Paul Pierce or Larry Bird? It's a good discussion. Obviously, we know where everyone lies on that. Or Scal. Scal's always in there.
Anyway, Paul Pierce Day. You can't.
No,
can't take. I'm not taking anything away from Paul Pierce.
No, it was a great night. Anything else from you?
I'm done, man. We'll listen to the comments and see what everyone has to say.
What do you think? Who's the greatest scorer in Celtics history? We'd love to hear from you on Twitter, YouTube, all that good stuff. So for Josue Pavone, Nick Gelso, I'm Jacob Toby. Thanks for watching The Garden Report.